Morning. Is the mic on? Morning, everybody. Welcome to my talk. I'm the thing standing between you and lunch. So you're either going to have an early lunch or a late one, depending on how many questions you ask at the end. We detectives call that a hint as to how many questions you should actually be asking at the end, eating in to your own time. As the introduction said, I've moved from a round building in Cheltenham where there's 5,000 people working on a daily basis with a team of about 70 to a very small team, some of whom are sat in the front row today. They were the ones whooping and hollering. Thank you for the applause. You might not want to applaud at the end of this. So I lead a small team. We mostly do digital forensics, but we also investigate cybercrime as it's committed across the island. And for those of you who work with or in companies, you'll probably recognize that the weakest link to any cybersecurity measure is the individual. So I thought I'd show you a representation about what it's like when you're trying to tell somebody to not click the link.
So I know it's easy for your mind to wander. I want you to really concentrate on me.
It often feels like that's what we do when we try to tell somebody to not click on the link. Their attention just goes. The monkey plays symbols in the head, but even the monkey eventually says, listen to what you're being told. So our day job is the extraction and analysis of electronic devices. The assisting the investigation of cyber-enabled crimes. So those are crimes that can be committed on the street, not necessarily just with a computer. So frauds, that type of thing, we assist the cyber investigators with it. We investigate cyber-dependent crimes. Those are crimes that can only be committed by the use of a computer. So that'd be hacking, etc. This is a marvelous machine we use for all our investigations. This was purpose-built, designed by ourselves. Very high-spec system. It's a glorified gaming machine, if you like, because of the data processing we have to do. It has to be high-quality stuff. We get our exhibits to come in through a chain of custody. We have to ensure that the chain of custody is correct. And these are just very quickly, for those who weren't at the workshop yesterday, some of the software we use to extract data. This one's from phones. We use Tableau devices, which are read-only, because we need to ensure the quality and the integrity of the evidence. So what I'm going to do now is, for the first half of my talk, is to go through investigations we've actually done. So these were actual investigations. Hopefully, with somebody from data protection in the audience, hopefully I've redacted all the details that are personalized. So this came in from our colleagues in the Cayman Island Bureau of Financial Investigation. So this particular victim thought he was on a trading platform, ffxtrader.com. He was told his account would reflect the investments he had made. Screenshots were provided, which I'll show you. The website was in fact controlled by a fraudster, and figures shown within user accounts corresponds to real world investments. So there was a lot of money going through this web page. And my colleagues from Cayman Islands Bureau of Financial Investigation, CIPS, followed where the cryptocurrency was going, and I concentrated on the web page itself. So this was the victim's screenshot showing the amount of money he'd invested in this company. So that's a lot of money. It's certainly a lot of money to me. And this is one of the things he got sent from them, showing the profit he had made that day, which of course wasn't profit. So what we do with that is we take the information that's given on there and investigate to see if we can find out who's responsible for this particular website. Alex Larson, PhD. Well, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? He must be a good guy because he's got a PhD. Although most people with PhD call themselves Dr. Alex Larson rather than PhD. So we looked to see if we could find anybody who is Alex Larson. Online searching is just not going to achieve a great deal. If you put in Dr. Alex Larson, you get a lot of doctors all over the world. So I didn't go on to use Spiderfoot or some of the tools that Len was talking about yesterday, simply because I have no idea who this person is, and it would be really difficult to trace after them and follow through there. 7 Newgate Street, however, we did check up on. It's a premises where you can register your company at. And that's it. The telephone number itself we looked into, and it's everybody has this telephone number used in various different frauds. I think it was an O2 number. It was a mobile number. This company, FXX Trading, which is dealing in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of stolen funds daily, use a mobile phone. Highly unlikely. When I looked at the page source itself, the page was pulling down stuff from tradingview.com. Basically, that was live market feeds that the company were pretending were theirs. In fact, they were just bringing it down from another company, another legitimate company. These were the terms and conditions. So the company is registered in the Marshall Islands, which is another offshore financial operation, operated by Bonluco Consulting from Bulgaria. Neither of these places are law enforcement friendly, so there was little point going after them. I did a check at Companies House with the company, found this particular company. As you can see, it's been dissolved. The gentleman who was the director was Bulgarian. He was born in 1958, and that was the only data I could get. And that was the final notice. So they'd register the company. It's quite common with fraudsters. They register a company, and after the first year, when they don't file reports, then Companies House strike them off. But the Financial Conduct Authority in London had already put out warnings about them. So they were on the radar in the UK, but they weren't here. So I'll go back one. The basics of this was we didn't get very far in finding out who the cyber criminals behind it were. So the alternative, and what we do a lot of, is disruption. So I had the web page taken offline so nobody else could fall victim to this particular fraud. I think the Financial Bureau managed to get quite a lot of the funds held, and I think it's still going through the process of the victim getting that back. But it's a long, complex process because of where they were held. So the next one. This was an email sent to government employees. Yes, unfortunately, even government employees click the link. That's why I showed the Homer thing to begin with. So infofax@gov.ky, pertaining to come from an internal address. In fact, as you can see, it's SSD multi-state. Audio 0485, which is what the person was asked to play, was in fact an HTML link. It wasn't an MP3. So I looked at the HTML document. Ignore the bit in blue. That was that was highlighted in error. The bit I want you to look at is the bit with the yellow box around it, which is the web page of the link was going to go to. Generally speaking with this, what I do is I copy and paste the URL, put it into a browser and see where it actually is. So I did that and got this, which was just weird. This is a legitimate Microsoft site. This is a legitimate Microsoft login. So I had no choice but to click on the link itself to see what it was actually going to do. It wasn't on the government system before anybody starts the thing. It was on Kali, I think I used it. But what I did when I was doing the password is I did a network capture at the same time. So I captured the network traffic from the web page as I was putting the password in. And this is what it turned up. So the reason it was sending me to Microsoft login page is it already got the data itself and had an immediate sending out. So if you see the top line, which one's the pointer? So this top line here, where it posted my password, but then immediately brought up the Microsoft page. And I hope you liked the password I used. I'm not sure if the actors liked it too much. Again, there was very little we could do with this. It was another, and if you've been involved in any of these types of investigation, I wish I'd £1 or $1 for every time this was a GoDaddy registered, name cheap held web page. This one was as well. They are very law enforcement unfriendly. So we can send legal orders on them, but my experience tends to be that they're not that good. So this one really annoyed me. You'll find out why in a moment. So this was a company who were claiming to assist people who'd been victims of a Ponzi scheme. So these people had already lost money to a Ponzi scheme. I think this one was Dolphin Trust, which had been dealt with by the German authorities. So people had already lost tens of thousands of dollars in this. And this company is saying, oh, by the way, we can get you your money back. And we won't charge you for it. Now, once you registered with them, you got this second email, which is supposed to come from the Fraud Desk Investigation Department of the Royal Cayman Islands Police Force. We are not a police force, we are a police service. Attached is a police order for refund. And this is what was attached. Uses our badge, signed by my commissioner, except that's not his signature. And it states that the money was being held in an account in the Cayman National Bank. Obviously, it's not an actual account. When I spoke to the people involved about the victims who'd gone a little bit further in them, the company says that, okay, so we're going to charge you about $10,000 for us to access this Cayman National Bank funds. Once we've got the $10,000, we'll return it to you together with the money that you lost in the Dolphin. Dolphin, which one was this? There's two of them. Yes, sorry. And I knew I'd seen this one before, and there was another one. Now, this claimed to be for the ROFX scam. Again, that was another Ponzi scheme where people had lost money. These criminals are targeting people who have already lost money, and they were making quite a lot of money from it. So again, we disrupted them and took the web page offline. So there was nobody else going to fall victim to this. I did wonder when I saw this to begin with whether it was Mr. Burns' signature, but I've seen it often enough to know it wasn't. The people involved in this, and we got all the names and we got all the details, just no trace on them whatsoever. The company wasn't registered anywhere, despite the fact it says that. It also actually had a YouTube page where there was all these nice souls on there saying, oh, this is a great company, except they never actually mentioned them by name. There was people who worked for them saying, oh, we're really good, we're really brilliant at what we do. And then there was people who said, oh, I've used this company. They were all Australian for some reason. I used this company and I got all this money back and they were really great, but they never actually mentioned this company by name. So they were fraudulently putting reviews on YouTube for people to think, well, this is a legitimate company. That was also taken offline. This is the one I've dealt with most recently. Sorry, go back a page. So this was related to that FFF Global. And again, they used a mobile phone as the contact details. I do phone these numbers up and nobody ever answers. Mitre Passage, North Greenwich is actually a really posh premises, and I contacted them, but they didn't have a company registered at their address. I was really shocked and surprised. So this one is a little bit one of the more technical ones we did. Again, it was a phishing email that came into government addresses. Going to ddstudio.com. The good news was, if you know to understand what these terminology means, 302 means that it didn't get there. So I was quite relaxed already because the web page didn't open. In fact, when you go onto it, it says straight away that it was closed. This is a screenshot of the investigation we did, where we took the host of the person, or one of the people who'd opened the email. We took the host, put it onto a forensic system, and downloaded it, so I can find the actual email that was sent to the person. And from the email, I can find the malicious link or the malicious file. The reason we do that is to see what it does. So I initially, in Linux, just catted it to see where it was. It's JavaScript. I know a knock joke about JavaScript, but we'll probably leave the jokes for another time. Not the easiest thing to reverse engineer, so I didn't bother a great deal. The interesting thing for me was this part here. So the first thing it was bringing down was a version of jQuery 1.9.1. I think jQuery is about 3.8.7 now. So the actors were using such old script that they had to pull down an older version of jQuery to make the damn thing work. And in fact, it didn't work anyway. The reason it didn't work is the JavaScript was not enabled properly. The error code relates to VBS script. And I think it was 2019, Microsoft banned VBS script from its systems. So it was never going to work. It was a close escape, but it shows you the perils of being involved in these types of things. So I'm just going to catch up with my notes. So that's the type of investigations we do, because that's the type of crime we pick up on. That's the type of crime that's reported to us. I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. Somebody asked Laura earlier about how many data breaches have been reported to the Ombudsman. I can tell you how many have been reported to us, and that's 0. I know they've happened because I've read about them on the Ombudsman's report, but nobody ever reports them to us. I don't know why. So the World Economic Forum has recently published its 2023 risks. At number 8, in the next 2 years and in the next 10 years, widespread cybercrime and cybersecurity are known risks. They're anticipated risks. This is not some group who've got no idea what they're talking about. This is the World Economic Forum, one of the most senior people in the world at determining what risks there are. Unsurprisingly, in 10 years, most of the bigger risks are related to climate change. What they said about cybercrime was, alongside the rise in cybercrime, so it's going to happen, attempts to disrupt critical technology-enabled resources and services will become more common. Quite a few risk threat companies are saying for this year and probably next year, we're going to see a decrease in ransomware attacks, but an increase in really serious attacks designed to take down your infrastructure completely. Technology risks are not solely limited to rogue actors. Sophisticated analysis of larger data sets will enable the misuse of personal information. So they're talking about the threat from cyber criminals. They're also talking about insider threats. That's the thing that's going to be a threat in 2 years and in 10 years. We are almost at war with cyber criminals. And if anybody's ever had any military training, you probably recognize the center of gravity. It's been around since the 18th century. One of the best and most influential generals of all time said, "It's the hub of all power and movement on which everything depends." So this talk is about looking at how the cybersecurity community of Cayman can work with law enforcement. So it refers to those sources of strength and balance. It is that characteristic, capability, or locality from which the force derives its freedom of action, physical strength, or the will to fight. It's a common practice in the military to say that the easiest way to take down an enemy is to take down the center of gravity. And so the military tried to do that, but they also tried to protect their own center of gravity. So if we look at this in relation to cyber criminals, what characteristics do they have? Well, they're very money-orientated. And they really don't give a shit about who they target and for what. If you think some of the jobs I dealt with or investigated when Hackney Council were ransomware, then they were taken completely offline in the middle of the pandemic. The effect on them and the community was huge. Cyber criminals didn't give a damn about that. All they wanted was the money. That's what characterizes them. That's what they do. Capability. Well, that's huge. They can get into most, if not any, infrastructure if they're determined to do so. The locality, the worldwide, which for law enforcement makes it really difficult because it's quite difficult for us to track them down if they're in law enforcement unfriendly countries. Will to fight? They've absolutely got a will to fight, and the reason for that is they're making a lot of money, and they'll continue to make a lot of money. So protection starts with the idea of attacking the enemy center of gravity while protecting your own. There's 3 phases to it. Critical capabilities. What are cyber criminal capabilities? We just discussed that. What are requirements? What resources do they need? Well, they've almost got limited resources now. And the reason for that is because the amount of money they can get and the amount of money they can pay to people and the amount of infrastructure they can get. So the FBI run a thing called IC3, which is Internet Center for Cybercrime, I think. But they report figures. So this is for the last 5 years. Then obviously 2022 being the last one. So this is the losses that have been reported to ICC. And as I talked about earlier, we all know there's a huge amount of underreporting. So I think this figure is nowhere near what the actual figure is, not even close. The interesting thing for me was the number of complaints has actually dropped, but the volumes have increased significantly. The most costly one, you'd be unsurprised to hear, was BEC, business email compromise. That was 2.7 billion in 2022. And critical vulnerabilities. What are cyber criminals' vulnerabilities? Those aspects or components of critical requirements that are deficient or vulnerable to attack or indirect attack. I'm not sure they've got that many, to be honest with you. When I worked for the NCSC, we did take down a lot of infrastructure. We took down TrickBot twice, I think, and it still came back because they're not that vulnerable, and we are not allowed to attack them technically. So what's my team's center of gravity? So we have the ability to disrupt to protect the community. I think most people in here probably are from companies that probably get really good cybersecurity, you've got really good infrastructure behind you, and a lot of people, the people out there, the people who are losing money don't, and it's my job to protect them as best we can. So we do disrupt, where we find, I think from memory, I think we took down 25 fake wealth management websites last year. I think it was about 25. We have the resources and capacity to disrupt, and as I said, have done so quite successfully so far. Critical vulnerabilities. Intelligence is our critical vulnerability. We don't know what's happening out there because no one tells us. No one says, by the way, John, we had this phishing attack. This is what we did about it. I don't know, is it reputational damage? Or is just no cybercrime happening on this island at all? I would like to think it's the second. I think it's more the first. As I've shown, we can take these websites down. In fact, if you've got enough money, you can subscribe to a company called Netcraft, and they'll do what I do for you. Because it is time-consuming, it does take a while. What I can get done quite quickly now is when we get some phishing links, and I can normally get that page flagged as malicious quite quickly and then work to get it taken down a little bit later. So the visual representation of what the center of gravity actually looks like, and this is important because this is where you're likely to be attacked, if you like. These are the things that are most likely to cause your organization to fall. It's where the cyber criminals are going to attack us. So I'll explain how it is in cyber security because it is militaristic. Leadership. For me personally, leadership means the government systems. So I work very closely with the office of the CISO in the government, Palm Green, to investigate incidents that happen to them with a view to protecting them. Because if the government system goes down, we're in trouble. I guess if your system goes down, you're in trouble as well. So leadership is really your network, if you like, rather than the individuals themselves. System essentials are the software that you would use to protect your system. Attack that, you're very near the center of the attack. Infrastructure. We look at the infrastructure in Cayman. We desalinate water. Is there a computer involved in that operation? CUC. We import a lot of stuff. I think I saw Leon here. We import goods. What happens if the supermarkets lose the ability to import goods? What does that do to our national infrastructure? Population is what it says. Field and military are probably you guys are CISOs are involved in cybersecurity. You're actually at the outside of the ring. They consider that attacking you is probably not really going to do a great deal because if they attack you, they'll just get another one. That's what it means on the battlefield. Kill a soldier, another one comes along. One of the vulnerabilities I talked about was nobody tells us anything, and I appreciate it's not that easy to report stuff like this to us. So working with the office of the CISO, this is going to be coming out very soon. It's in beta at the moment, and we've got a few more tweaks, but it's the ability to report a cyber incident to us direct. It comes straight into my office. Now, that could be a text you get, could be a phishing email you get. It doesn't really matter. send it to us, and we'll take the infrastructure down. I know a lot of people aren't that IT friendly, but I just need somebody who is IT friendly to use the form and report it to us, and then we can protect the vulnerable people out there who are not IT friendly. I can get that link flagged as malicious really quickly, so if anybody does click on it, there's nothing bad going to happen to them. In addition to that, some of the other things we've got planned for this year is we're going to reform the CSET. We can't call it CERT because Hazard Management have copyrighted the term CERT for here. And personally, I would like to thank Hazard Management for the alert this morning. I had to turn my phone off in the end. Aubrey said, you acknowledged it, and I thought, I'm fed up acknowledging it, it's still going off. So we're going to get some critical people together to do that. To support that, we've reached out to the NCSC and they've agreed to help us do exercising, and we're hoping to expand that wider to the community. We're looking to get on the NCSC's early warning system that's providing them with critical infrastructure IP addresses, which they can keep an eye on and say, oh, by the way, we've seen this bad thing on this IP address. It's not going to work as well as it does in the UK because of how our system works, but it's better than nothing. We're also going to be working with NCSC's Active Cyber Defense team. And I'm meeting all these guys at their conference in Belfast. Having worked there, I know their capabilities, and it's something I don't mind. I do reach out to my old colleagues, wherever they are. Some of them work for Darktrace, some of them work for some other places. I've got a really good network of people who can help us. So the key questions. The key questions I want everybody who works in cybersecurity in here to consider is, this isn't on my sheet, I must have added it yesterday. So the US finds its center of gravity in the fight against ransomware. I didn't think of this, the US has, of course, have already done it. And they have formed the ransomware task group. And their job, so this is about ransomware, but I think the messages behind it are equally valid for what we're doing now. Victim support, ensure that victims of ransomware incidents receive the necessary support to restore services and minimize damage. I can tell you categorically that if your systems are hit by ransomware, you are going to have to call in a CIR, computer incident response team, because we haven't got the capability to properly investigate that, because these guys are very intrusive. These attacks are huge, and I've never dealt with a serious ransomware attack, and I've dealt with a lot of them. And these are major companies. Even Symantec and Sophos had to bring in a CIR company because that's what they do, because if you don't get rid of the actor, they're still going to be doing you. So we do want to provide victim support, and that's one of the reasons we're forming the CSET as well, to look at individuals around the cybersecurity community who can respond quite quickly in those early days. That's not going to negate the need to do a CIR company, unfortunately. Collecting data and metrics will improve the cybersecurity community's collective understanding of ransomware. And as I said, it's not just ransomware, it's cyber attacks in general. But we work in silos, folks. We work in silos, we get the stuff that comes in. You get phishing emails, I know you do. You get targeted. People try to go at your vulnerabilities. I know they do. That's just life online. If you don't want that, there's a little plug at the back of it with a blue or a yellow cable. Just pull it out and you'll be fine. You won't be getting any more cyber attacks. Until then, you're going to get them. But where's the data collected? So a lot of the regulatory bodies have got licenses for a threat intelligence company that we upload and speak to each other. We're hoping to extend that further out. Partner engagement, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to engage partners and say hello. Continuous improvement, learning from lessons. Intelligence and integration, I'm going to run through this quickly because I'm running out of time. Campaign coordination. So the US have decided that this is their center of gravity to protect companies and businesses in the US. It's a presidential-led campaign because it was Mr. Biden who started it. As a community, what is our center of gravity? And this is what I want you to consider for your own organizations. What are your critical capabilities? And more importantly for us as a community, what are our capabilities to work together? What are our requirements? What resources and means exist that enable a community critical capability to become fully operational? What are the stumbling blocks to doing it? And what are our vulnerabilities? I think having talked about water, food, electricity, I personally have a view of what our greatest vulnerabilities are. So we have to look at capabilities. And you might say, John, is there even a problem? Does a problem actually exist? And to do that, you have to do a capability audit, which is test the measures of the current system against the problem or threat. I've explained what the threat is. What capability audits do you do? And if you carry out a capability audit, you end up thinking the problem is bigger than we thought. It's getting bigger than we would like. Our current answer to the problem is getting smaller, and the timeline is shorter, longer than I planned for. I can tell you that if you do get hit by ransomware, if you do have a data breach, the problem is much bigger than you thought. Imagine going into work tomorrow to your offices, to your businesses, wherever, and you do not have a computer system at all. I spoke at this last year, and I think I told this story. One of the very first conference calls we held with Hackney Council, they said, "Oh, it's great. We've got a plan for this. Where's your plan?" Oh God, it's on the computer. Took them months to restore the services, months. So this is where we sit with our little balance of center of gravity. It won't take much to ruin the center of gravity. And if we think it's not local, this is St. Kitts and Nevis who were hit by ransomware in January this year. They said, we can't afford to pay the ransom, and they probably couldn't and didn't. And they couldn't run their essential government services because it was a government network that was taken down. And that's why I do what I can with the CISO to try to protect the government's network, our leadership. But you guys can fill into that by providing us with intelligence or threats so we really understand what is happening. Because this is real. 2 weeks ago, the data appeared on the dark web, and there's a lot of it. And it's named, tells you exactly what the files are. I don't know if they have, I don't know if they've got data laws, Laura, but I think they might be having to report it to their ombudsman. So, in closing, to go back over the center of gravity refers to those sources of strength or balance. It is that characteristic, capability, or locality from which the force derives its freedom of action, physical strength, or will to fight. What is our will to fight against cyber attack to help protect the Cayman Islands? Thank you. Any questions or suggestions? I'm open to suggestions. And the suggestions probably it's lunchtime. But I've got the big red sign that says time's up. But thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully it's been educational, if nothing else.